I want to start off by introducing myself in case you're wondering why a 13-year-old is talking to you today. My name's Doris Spetalk, and when I was 7 I published my first book. It's called Flying Fingers, Master Your Tools of Learning Through the Joy of Writing. And more recently I published a second book called Dancing Fingers. And so I really love to write, and I know that one thing that a lot of students like you have to do when you're taking your state test is write from prompts. So what is your reaction to writing from prompts? When you think of prompts, are you just really totally into it? Are you, I love writing prompts, or are you, I don't like prompts? What's your idea about prompts?
Tell her a little louder. A little in between, he said. Who else has an idea? What do you think when you have to write for a prompt? Cassie?
I really like it, but it doesn't usually turn out to be a prompt.
She has trouble limiting her ideas.
Okay.
Some of them say they like it, and some of them say they don't like it.
Okay. Well, depending on what your reaction is, as long as you have an open mind about it, I think that's the best reaction you could ask for. As long as your face isn't like that. I'm not sure if you can see the slide behind me, but I chose an image that was sort of like not super. I guess that's more of a shocked look. But I'm hoping that you don't have that sort of face when you think of writing from prompts. So I want to emphasize that prompts really don't have to be hard. Sorry, I'm sort of moving my windows around here. Oops. I'm trying to have my slides show, but at the same time be able to see you guys. So I'm going to move this down here, and okay, there we go. Sorry. So tip number 1: the first thing that you want to do when you get your prompt and you open it, you open up your test book later. You're looking at your prompt, and you want to read it. And read it carefully. Look for keywords and think about the purpose of the prompt. So what do I mean when I say purpose of the prompt?
Just go ahead and you can answer. You don't have to raise your hand. What does she mean by purpose of the prompt?
What it means is, it's like what you're writing about, really.
What you're writing about, it's what you're trying to do. So when you read a prompt and it asks you to write a letter to your principal telling her or him or her why you think uniforms should be uniforms should be required or uniforms should not be required, then the purpose of the prompt is getting you to persuade your principal one way or another and to share your opinion. So when you think about the purpose of the prompt, you're asking yourself, what am I trying to do? When you read the prompt, ask yourself 3 questions. What is my purpose? What am I trying to do here? Who is my audience? Who am I writing this for? Is it for my teacher, for my classmates, for the judge on the state test? And what is my perspective? Does anyone want to tell me what perspective is?
We didn't quite get your question there. Could you say
Oh,
again?
sorry, sure. Does anyone want to tell me what is perspective?
Perspective.
It's point of view.
Point of view, very good. Your perspective is your point of view. It's where you stand on an issue, how you feel about it. So, for instance, when it comes to write a letter to your principal saying that with your opinion on uniforms, with your perspective on uniforms, should they be required, should they not be required, then your perspective is how you feel, where you stand on that issue. So ask yourself, what is my purpose, who is my audience, and what is my perspective to begin brainstorming when you get the prompt. What is my purpose in writing this? We all like to know, what is our purpose? What are we trying to do here? And so when you get a prompt, you want to ask yourself, is my purpose to persuade, in which case it would be persuasive writing? Is it to inform, in which case it would be expository writing, or explain, also expository? Or is it to entertain, in which case it would be narrative writing? So does anyone want to tell me, give me an example of persuasive writing versus expository writing?
Wyatt has just been writing persuasively. What's the difference? Walker.
With persuasive, you try to get someone to believe something or do something. And with an expository writing, you explain something.
Yeah, exactly. If you think of it this way, imagine if your teacher suddenly walked up to the front of the class and says, "Class, today we're going to be learning about how to use figurative language." Now, you really need to learn figurative language because figurative language is just the best kind of writing ever. You know, it is the most amazing, incredible writing, and you will be doing yourself a serious disservice if you don't learn this. It is just, my mind, it struggles to explain how awesome figurative language is. Does your teacher walk up to the front of the class and introduce, math or figurative language or whatever that way? No. Probably your teacher, unless, yes, teachers can be that enthusiastic about certain things. I know I've been going on and on about how awesome descriptive language is or something, but most of the time, your goal, let's say when you're teaching or when you're explaining something, is to inform. So you'd be like, well, figurative language is this, and here's some examples of figurative language. And when you inform them, you're not really sharing your opinion, as in, and you're not trying to convince someone of, oh, here's something that you should also believe. It's sort of like if you're writing a persuasive essay about a penguin, this is an example I like to use, then you would be saying penguins are so cool because blank, blank, blank. They are really cute and they're talented. If you're writing an expository essay about penguins, then you might say something like, well, penguins' natural habitat is Antarctica, and they like hunting for fish.
Dora, somehow our sound isn't coming through. Can you hear us okay?
Oh no! You're not able.
we got something about penguins.
Yeah, Are you able? Sorry, I was trying to use this example to do persuasive versus expository. Are you not able to? Are you hearing me right now?
Yeah, now you sound good.
Let me try to move this forward a little bit. I'm hoping that maybe that'll help resolve the problem. Let me see.
It seems like you were getting like half of your words, so it was hard to follow.
Yeah, the quality of the microphone on this computer might not be the best. I'm trying to figure out if I can just maybe move a little bit closer.
Okay.
Yeah, so as basically what I was saying, and tell me immediately if my words are starting to cut out again so that I can hopefully try to repeat it. A persuasive article about a penguin. If you get a prompt and it says, write a persuasive article about an animal which you believe to be very interesting. Write to your friend telling why that animal is your favorite animal or something. So I might start writing something like, well, penguins are the coolest animal ever because they're very cute, they're talented, and they have lots of skills. Now, if my prompt were instead to write an expository paragraph about a penguin, then I might write something instead that would be like, penguins' natural habitat is Antarctica. So the difference between persuasive and expository writing is that in one you're trying to inform, you're trying to explain, and in another you're trying to convince somebody. So narrative writing is basically story writing. It's telling a story. And that would be something like, once upon a time there was a penguin. So the persuasive, expository, and narrative, these three different types of writing, are the three different types of writing that you might face with your prompts. We see persuasive writing every day whenever we see advertisements or we hear someone trying to tell us about the latest, coolest kind of clothing. Informative and expository whenever we're teaching someone something or when we're learning. We see expository language and writing in action. And then narrative writing when we're reading a funny book or telling a funny story to a friend. So often you might have more than one purpose. When you write an email to a friend, you might have all three purposes. To inform your friend that your parents just bought a huge trampoline, to entertain your friend with a story of how you already bounced off the trampoline into the yard, and to persuade your friend to come over to your place after school. So persuasive, expository, and narrative, sometimes we use them all at once, and you use them every day, often without even knowing it. So what are some of the prompts, what are some of the common prompts that you see, either that you get in class or that you're going to get on your state test?
What's a prompt that you've written to recently?
Alana? No, I haven't done English just recently.
Well, somebody did one just today. Nathan, what did you write about today?
About two cowboys that have.
I'm sorry?
You wrote about two cowboys that started a fire on the plains.
Oh,
What
okay.
happened?
So is that, now I want you guys to tell me, would that be an example of persuasive writing, expository writing, or narrative writing?
Persuasive and entertaining.
What do you think? Nathan, what do you think?
Narrative.
Narrative. Right, whenever you're telling a story, whether it's fictional or whether it's personal, then it would be narrative. So anytime you get a prompt that says something like, imagine that you've been whisked back into time, you have to find some way to get home and tell a story about your adventure. Anytime you get things like, tell a story about, imagine this, often that'll be narrative writing because you have to tell a story. So we're going to practice by looking at some prompts and naming the author's main purpose. What are we trying to do here? Are we trying to explain? Then it would be expository writing. To persuade, then persuasive writing, or to entertain, narrative writing. So let's say you have to write a letter to a friend who is coming to visit your city. What is the number one thing they should see? Pick one attraction and list the reasons why that should be their top pick. So if you have to write a letter to a friend who's coming to visit your city, and you have to decide what is the number one thing they should see, then what kind of writing would that be?
Could you say that question again?
Sure. So we're going to take a look at this prompt and decide what kind of writing it is. Persuasive, expository, or narrative?
Persuasive.
Persuasive. Very good. So whenever you have something where you're trying to convince somebody, you have to list the reasons why, and it's your opinion, definitely persuasive. What about this one? Write instructions for building a go-kart.
What kind of writing would that be? Instructions for a go-kart.
Expository.
Expository, very good. Now what about this one? Actually, it's really easy because I just mentioned it. But imagine that you've suddenly been pulled back in time. Where are you? What do you see? How will you go home? Describe your adventure. Narrative, exactly. So when you look at a prompt, you use keywords. You use the words inside the prompt, and you decide, am I trying to tell a story? Am I trying to convince them about my opinion? Or am I trying to explain something or inform? So when you look at prompts, you use these keywords and you really discover your purpose in writing. When you know your purpose, you can make each sentence you write work towards that purpose, to inform, to explain, to persuade, or to entertain. Next, you want to ask yourself, who is my audience? Who's going to be reading my work? So who reads your work when you're writing on a test?
Always the teachers.
So if it's...
Is it so?
We have many teachers here.
So if you're writing for a test in one of your classes, then it would probably be your teacher of that class who would read your test. But if you're writing on a state test, let's say, then it would be judges who you probably don't know, and so as a result, you might not know too much about your audience. When you know your audience, then you can do a lot in your writing to make your writing more pleasing, I guess, to that audience. But if you don't know too much about your audience, it might seem like it's kind of difficult to take the information and use it to make your writing better. But when you know your audience, even if you don't know them that well, you know what information you need to include in your writing. For instance, if you're writing an email to your brother or sister about your mom, then you wouldn't need to explain what she looks like or what she does for a job. But if you're writing an essay about your mom for class, and your classmates don't know that sort of thing, then you might need to explain that. And when you're writing an essay for a state test, then you have to realize that maybe the judges, they might not live in your city, they might live somewhat far away, they probably don't know you or your family, so you explain more. Knowing your audience really helps you know what information you need to include. The important thing to remember is that your audience might not know much about you or your life, so it's crucial to introduce each topic and give the reader a context. Now I want to pause a moment here and quickly discuss how important it is knowing your audience. So, would anyone like to tell me what's a way that you've used what you know about your audience to change the way that you write? Like, have you ever, maybe, let's say you were writing something for class, have you ever included certain details to help people understand something?
Yes.
Yeah, so if you think about whether they're projects that you've given to your teacher or shared with the rest of your class, you've probably added things. So when you talk about your family, for instance, you probably introduce my sister, Adriana, or my brother, Sam, as opposed to just listing them by their name. So by knowing your audience, you know what to include and what to leave out. And even if your audience does know you, when you're writing for a test, it's important to introduce each topic and explain who you're talking about. So I want to quickly ask you guys, what are your strategies? When you read a prompt, what are your strategies for doing well and responding to it and staying on topic?
Who has a strategy for when you have to write to a prompt on a test? What do you usually do first? Cassie?
Of it is too long so that I don't have to do way too much work and make it take way too much time.
I'm sorry, the audio kind of cut out in the middle.
She says that she tries not to make it too long. Cassie is a real avid reader, and sometimes her stories are too involved, and then that makes it hard on a test because there's too much to read over and proofread.
Definitely, yes. And when you have like only a certain number of lines, then definitely that gets a little hard and a little crowded. So one tip might be plan out what you're going to write about ahead of time, and maybe think I'm going to write this much and I'm going to have this many characters, because I know I've done the same thing where I have like 25 different people in my story, and I'm starting to practically write a 100-page novel when all they really want is maybe a 10-paragraph story. So what are some other strategies?
But most of you don't have trouble writing too much. How about you, Brett?
I try to make it strong, but not too long beginning. They grab my audience attention.
Yes, you want to really grab your audience's attention. That's a good point you made. And then also making your argument strong. If you're writing persuasively, you want to think of it, it's sort of like building a house. You want to have a solid foundation. So I can't just say, for instance, penguins are the coolest animal on Earth, period. I have to actually support that with some observations, with some examples.
Okay, you're cutting out again. We're missing your words.
Oh, that always seems to happen when I mention penguins, doesn't it? Okay, I'll avoid that in the future. But what I'm saying is, when you're making a persuasive argument, you don't want to just stop at your topic sentence. You don't want to just say, this is what I believe, period. You want to go in and say, because blank, 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 and have your reasons to support it. So let's get one more strategy for doing well when you're responding to a prompt.
One more person. Alana.
It sounds like making a body at the beginning's not strong enough to cause it nice.
Yes, if you don't have a strong introduction, then your body just goes downhill. Because you really need to, in your introduction, you want to draw the reader in. You want to get them interested with a hook. You don't want to start off with something really boring. You want to maybe have a question that you would ask or a scenario. So draw the reader in and then have a strong argument or a strong topic sentence or something, especially with persuasive writing, that you support with reasons, facts, or examples. So it's really important when you look at the prompt, understand what is your purpose, what kind of writing am I going to use here, how long will it need to be, and then make sure that you're addressing the question that they're asking, that you're staying on topic. So to talk a little more about audience and the importance of audience, you want to make sure to introduce things that your readers might not.
Dora, we are having a real hailstorm right now.
Oh.
And that might be something about why we're getting kind of a bad connection, because the hail is just hitting the windows and distracting the kids.
I see. Oh, that's what I was hearing. I wasn't sure if it would sound like saran wrap or something being opened.
Yeah, right, that's the hail.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I'm not sure that Skype is the best way to do the connection.
Right. But I'd say 90% of your voice is coming through just fine. Every now and then I think it's the connection.
Okay.
And it's just kind of fading, and then it comes back strong. So don't worry, just keep going. You're doing a great job.
Okay. Oh, thank you very much. I'm sorry about that. Yeah. I'll try to move this forward a little bit. I don't want the computer to drop off the edge of the table. So that's yeah, a little unfortunate. Okay. So we talked about some strategies that you guys are using. You want to make your strong argument. You want to realize what your purpose is, what kind of writing you're going to use. And another thing to keep in mind is, sorry if I'm pointing, I just have slides back there if you can't see it. You might be wondering what I'm pointing at. But when you have your audience, you know that your audience doesn't know that much about you. then you introduce people. So let's say you're responding to a prompt and you're talking about your neighborhood, you're describing your neighborhood, and you say, my neighborhood's really lovely and I play with my friends a lot. Annie rode around the corner on her BMX. Now suddenly you talk about Annie and your audience doesn't know who Annie is. So you want to introduce Annie. Annie, my friend from down the street, rode around the corner on her BMX. When you introduce her as my friend from down the street, then you suddenly make the reader realize, oh, I see, that's the relevance. And you might even explain what a BMX is. So let's practice with this activity. How can we make this more clear for our audience? I live in Harrisburg with Tyler, Jesse, Nana, Snowball, and Mom. Every day I ride to Burke Hills. I sit next to Pacey and Catherine. We are learning about parks. Mrs. Huxley says I'm a natural. Afterward, I go over to Sasha's. So what's unclear about this paragraph?
So,
Who the people are.
Who the people are. Yeah, exactly. We don't know who Tyler, Jesse, all these people are. We don't know really what Burke Hills is, or Mrs. Huxley, Pacey and Catherine, Sasha. We have no idea who all these people are. So let's practice rewriting this. So I'm going to open up a new page and start writing. So first of all, who do you think those people are? How can we introduce them to make it more clear?
who should they be? Sawyer.
Something about
Mr. Well, just tell us who you want him to be.
teacher.
Oh, so let's start with that first sentence. I live in Harrisburg with Tyler, Jesse, Nana, Snowball, and Mom. Are they her friends? Are they her family? Are they her fellow retirement community seniors?
Who do you want him to be? Cassie.
Family.
With my family, okay? Tyler, Jesse, Nana, Snowball, the cat, and Mom. So suddenly, by just including that one word, my family, or those two words, my family, the reader knows who these people are. Every day I ride to Burke Hills, which is what?
Abby.
Your school.
Yeah, every day I ride to Burke Hills School. I sit next to, who would you want to sit next to if you could choose?
Nathan.
My friends.
Yeah, I sit next to my friends, Pacey and Catherine. In class, we are learning about quarks. And who would Mrs. Huxley then be?
Your teacher.
Okay. My teacher, Mrs. Huxley, says I'm a natural. After school, I go to Sasha's. This one's a little open for debate. Who would Sasha be, do you think?
Brett.
Your friend.
Okay, after school, I go over to my friend Sasha's house. Okay, so suddenly, compared to this, I live in Harrisburg with Tyler, Jesse, etc., every day I ride to Burke Hills, we've changed that, we've made it more clear, just by adding a few words here and there. We've explained some of these things. I live in Harrisburg with my family, Tyler, Jesse, Nana, Snowball, the cat, and Mom. Every day I ride to Burke Hills School. I sit next to my friends, Pacey and Catherine. In class, we are learning about quarks. My teacher, Mrs. Huxley, says I'm a natural. After school, I go over to my friend Sasha's house. So by knowing your audience, by realizing that the people who will be judging your state test or your teacher who might be grading the test that you turn in at school, they may not know every member of your family or who they are or the name of your pet. So by explaining things like that, you make your writing a whole lot more clear. Now let's talk about pre-writing. How many of you do pre-writing?
Raise your hand if you do pre-writing. Only if I make them. You know, when we make a list of ideas before we start writing, that's pre-writing.
So pre-writing, does anyone know why pre-writing might be a good idea?
What do you think, Walker?
Because it gives you a better idea of what your story is going to be like, and if you need to fix something, you can fix it.
Exactly. It gives you a better idea of what your story is going to be like ahead of time. Let's say, for instance, if you're worried about your story being too long, then that's something that it can be helped by doing some pre-writing. Then you'll realize, okay, I might need 2 pages, maybe I need to cut down on this part of the plot. So by pre-writing, it could be making a simple list of your ideas, it could be making a web. There's many different ways that you could pre-write to help you organize your ideas and know ahead of time where you might need to edit as well. So pre-writing is something that you should do, maybe not just when you have to, but you should do it voluntarily. So let's say that you're going to the store and you want your parents to buy you a computer game, and you say, Mom, Dad, you should buy me a computer game because computer games teach kids valuable skills. And you stop there. Are your parents going to buy you a computer game?
There would be some reasons they should buy you a computer game. Go ahead, Lana.
Because it's spoiled.
Okay. I don't know if that would persuade them. Nathan?
It'll help your hand-eye coordination. Very good. So, like for instance, on this web that I made, I'm not sure how well you can see it. It's behind me, but what you would want to think about is think almost like, let's say when you get a prompt and it says computer games are often labeled as detrimental to children's health. List reasons why you believe that computer games are either detrimental or helpful to kids. So if you get a prompt like that, imagine that you're trying to convince your parents to buy you a game. Then you wouldn't just stop at computer games teach kids valuable skills. You would expand, you would come up with reasons. So I made a web and I said computer games teach kids valuable skills, and then the reason that I added was, like you mentioned, the hand-eye coordination. I also added kids who get on the computer to play games will be more comfortable using computers later in life, and certain games improve learning by getting kids interested in history. So I used all these examples. I started with my main idea and then I branched off. So you can use things like a web or making a list of ideas to help you organize your thoughts. If I just suddenly started writing about my thoughts on computer games, it might not be very organized. How's the hail? What's the hail looking like? Is it added up at all?
I think we missed your question.
Oh, I was just asking questions because I saw you guys looking towards the window what the hailstorm was looking like.
It looks like it's past now. The windows are all covered with rain. So pay attention and look at the camera, you guys. She caught you. Actually, there was Wyatt was over by the window. He was looking for how to get back to his seat.
Oh. Okay. So raise your hand if you have built an outline before. An outline? An outline.
Have you done an outline before? Raise your hand. All right, you caught me. I haven't taught him much about outlines.
No, that's not that not a bad thing at all, because outlines are kind of just another form of pre-writing. They're basically like a way of taking everything that you put in a web or a list of ideas and just structuring it. So it's really not that hard. When you basically, for instance, like with my web, how I had my topic idea, computer games teach kids valuable skills, and then I branched off with my reasons. Then I would take that and I would actually put in paragraph number 1, I'm going to have my introduction, I'm going to have my hook to draw readers in, and my thesis statement or the point I'm trying to make. So an outline is just saying 1, here's the point I'm going to make, A, B, C, my reasons to support it, 2, another point I'm going to make, A, B, C, my reasons to support it. So it's just making a list essentially of here's a reason and here's my examples that are holding it up. So let's say you get a prompt that says choose, and this is a prompt that I've actually seen in a lot of list of prompts. Choose one school rule that you would like to change and write a letter to your principal explaining what the rule is and why it should be changed. So why don't we practice just with the organization idea? What's one school rule you guys think should be changed?
What do you think, Walker?
Don't trade food.
Don't trade food at lunch.
Don't trade food at lunch. Okay, so why do you think that should be changed?
Because
Anybody have a reason why that should not be a rule? Sawyer? What's a reason why you should change that rule? Cassie?
You might have something that you don't like, and another person might have something they don't like, but the first person would like the thing that the second person doesn't like, and the second person would like the thing that the first person doesn't like. So they could trade it and they have stuff that they like.
Did you get that?
Yes, I did. So you're saying that it's really not fair for people if they have stuff that the other person might like and they really don't like their thing. It's not fair to keep them from trading. So you might start off with some kind of scenario. So like you might say, and I'm going to write down some of these reasons. We're going to practice sort of organizing and then writing prompts. So your reason, if Microsoft Word will ever open. So you might start off with a scenario. You could say, you might start with a scenario like, imagine that you're sitting down at lunch. You open up your brown paper sack and there it is, lunch. You look at your sandwich and, oh no, it's, what's a really gross kind of meat?
Gross kind of meat. What? Bologna.
Bologna, okay. Oh no, it's bologna again. You look over at your neighbor's meal. They're looking sadly at, what's a meat that some people think is gross, but some you might like? Okay, they're looking sadly at a turkey and bacon sandwich. Why they don't like turkey and bacon, you don't know. You love both. And they catch a whiff of your bologna and lean in, asking excitedly, can I trade? But no, it's just another school rule that says you, but no, let's see, an unfair school rule says that you can't trade lunch. So by starting with a scenario like that, that gets the reader to kind of like pretend that when you address the reader with this scenario, that gets them to imagine something that you might have to go through, wanting someone else's sandwich, they want your sandwich, but you can't trade it, then you kind of show them this is what it's like. So what are some reasons? What are some other, you can't only have a scenario and that's your argument, you have to have some other reasons.
Another reason, Alana?
So then
I'm sorry?
when your friends go and give other people food behind teachers' back so that you don't have to tell?
Oh, so like maybe they sneak food because it's against the rule. They sneak trades, and that's not good?
Okay, so I'm going to make an outline. I'll say I'll say number one, kids will sneak food anyway, and it makes everyone, and it creates a negative environment because kids are worried about either getting caught or having to cover up for friends, etc. Okay, so you would have that. What else? What are some other reasons?
Another reason. Come on, if we're going to persuade, we've got to have good reasons. Alex said someone stole her sandwich.
Okay, so
They had to give back theirs because they ate her sandwich, so they had to give back theirs.
They accidentally ate my sandwich.
Okay, yeah, I have to say I'm kind of dubious of the accidentally ate your sandwich excuse, but
Somebody else have another reason?
what are some other reasons? So we have this.
Tell it, Nora. What was your reason, Joel?
Maybe you want to poison somebody, they put poison in your sandwich, trade it for them.
What's your purpose, though? You want to change the rules?
That would be like the opposite agreement.
Alana, what's your idea?
So then the friends won't have to get really mad at you if they're about to trade when you go and help.
I'm sorry?
Did you get that?
No.
Okay, you guys need to be quiet. Alana, suggest.
So then friends don't get mad at you when they're super bossy and when you tell on them when they're about to trade.
Okay. All right. So we have some reasons here. We have this idea of it would work really well. If people have lunches they want to trade that they don't like, then everyone can be happy. Kids will sneak food anyway, and it creates a negative environment because kids will be worried about getting caught or having to cover up for friends. And then your friends might get mad at you if you tell, even though you're just trying to follow the rules. And then, not to mention, if someone steals your sandwich, you need a way to get them back for it, which I'm not sure. I'm not sure is the most positive thing, but yeah, I guess you could argue that sandwich thefts need to be repaid somehow. So. Okay, now another thing that you want to do when you have a prompt and it's a persuasive prompt, you need to also think about, well, let's say if I were arguing the other way, I were saying that this rule is actually fair and it should be kept on the books. You might say something like, well, this prevents disease from spreading. Maybe you could say, well, kids who, you don't know how the food was prepared, you don't know whether it's clean, so the rule against trading food keeps kids from coming in contact with diseases or something.
Anyways.
But yeah, that's exactly. So when I gave you that, then you said, but we'll get it anyway. Yeah, pretty much. If a kid comes from a home and there's a flu going around, then you'll probably get it anyway. So you could argue it that way. And by playing by doing the other side, by having an opinion from the other side, then you're able to give yourself ideas on how to come up with counterattacks or counter arguments. So that's how you might respond to a persuasive prompt. You start off by making an outline. You make a list of your reasons, and then you expand on those reasons. You use a scenario or something interesting to draw the readers in. Now, how might you start with? What are some narrative prompts that you get? Can anyone tell me a narrative prompt that you've had before?
On your reading or your English test when you have to write a story, what's some of the prompts that you've had to write about? Alex? Seems like we always get this one about, Joel?
Like, you're at your mysterious grandparents' house, and you walk into the attic and you find a box and you open it up and there's a key.
And you don't know what the key goes for, and you're supposed to write a story about it. Did you get that?
Okay. So how might you start sort of planning out your story?
Alana?
One rainy and stormy day, I went to my grandmother's